Well, as I said in the program, we have Father Ron, who's a regular on closing our show. He's actually a master modeler himself, and with enough coercion, I got him on. So, welcome, Father Ron, in a modeling role. We appreciate you doing this evening.
Well, thank you. I was hoping to be able to show you some of the work I'm doing. You asked me several shows ago if I would show what I'm working on, so I put together a PowerPoint here. I'm going to share what I've got. And I changed things a little bit. I'm calling it my current projects. Most of it is about my grandmother's house. Um, she was a German background, came to the United States. Well, she was born in the United States. Her parents came here probably during the mid 1800s. She was born in the late 1800s and married a fellow German farmer as well. It's in Denton, Kansas, which is a rural area, northeast Kansas, not far from the Missouri River and one of its tributaries. And this is the house as you see it in Google Street Maps. That's the current view of it. You can see it's a bit deteriorated. She lived to be 93 years old and died in, I think, the late 80s. And since then, it was purchased, well, it was taken over by her son, Bernard. And when he died at 94. My grandmother died at 93. And before he moved into an assisted living home, he sold it to one of my cousins. One of my cousins then, he kept the farm, but he sold the house to a person who ended up being a trainer of dog fights and was arrested. And I don't know who's living in it now. When I was there, of course, this area was all fenced off and it was very carefully kept. It has since deteriorated quite a bit. This is the view of the area from Google Earth, top to bottom, left to right. The very topmost building is the new barn. You can't see the old barn in this, but it's falling apart. Just below that is the chicken coop. I don't know whether they still have chickens or not, but my grandmother certainly had them. To the left there is the corn crib. It has a new roof on it from when I was a kid. And then below that is the house. You can see it's a compound roof and has an addition on the lower right. What you don't see very much of because it's covered in part by trees, but to the right of it, that little gray area after the two propane tanks is the smokehouse. My parents, during the Great Depression, raised their own crops and slaughtered their own cows and pigs and smoked their own meat. So they got through the Depression on their own for the most part. My grandmother raised 11 children. She actually gave birth to 12, but the 12th child died within a few days of its birth. So that house had to house 11 children, ranging from oldest to youngest. The youngest two were twins. So it's a rather large house. I used Google Earth's measuring abilities to find kind of what the size of the house was, so I knew what to convert it to. I began using a piece of wood I bought quite a number of years ago from Micromark. At the time, I was new to scratch building and I didn't know much about the wood that was available from Micromark. And this piece is 1/8 of an inch thick, but it's meant for dollhouse furniture. And I couldn't use it because the spacing on the boards is too broad for HO scale. So I used the back side of it to lay out all the walls and windows. Um, There are 10 walls altogether for the building, 10 large windows, basically a single pane over a single pane. It was one extra large window, which was not the same size as the other 10. It had 2 small windows and 3 doors. I'll mention about one door later. I managed to find some windows that were approximately the right size and tishy, so I used the 8061 for that. That's 4 panes over 4 panes, so I just took out the mullions on the top and the bottom. The small windows are the small caboose windows that you can buy from Tichy 8067. And the doors were in my collection already. They were 5-panel doors, number 8032. I also have a chimney, one of Tishy's chimneys that I'll use on the roof of the building. I'm going to have to hand build the extra large window because I couldn't find a Tichy window that was even close to the size of that window in the photograph. And I'm using rail scale models, asbestos siding strips, the step pattern. I have yet to color them or to weather them or to even seal them. I haven't gotten quite that far yet. After I laid out the windows, I divided them up into smaller pieces. As you can see here, there over on the left is an extra piece, which will come in very handy because of a mistake I made in measuring and laying out all the windows. So you can see where the top little piece in each of the sections is an extra piece as well, which will come in handy at one point when I rebuild one of the walls in the building. I cut out all the windows while they were still all attached to the smaller pieces to handle. The piece that I was using was about 24 inches long, so it's kind of hard to operate on a full piece on my desktop. So I cut them into smaller sections and then cut out the windows and doors. I reinforced the back side, even though it's an 1/8 of an inch thick wood. And I coated the inside with some basic camouflage paint from, what do you call it, Rust-Oleum, to darken the inside. I'm not going to model the inside of the house. It's rather complicated, and I don't quite want to do that. I'm giving this as a gift to one of my sisters whom I grew up with and I'm close to, and I told her about it. She said, "Oh, I'd like to have a model of that." You can see the extra large window right about the center of the photograph. It turned out to be I measured it too big, and so I had to remake that repair later on. The front side that you see some of the paint stains on, I'm not too concerned about that because that'll be covered up with the siding material. But I did stain that front side with Hunter Line's medium brown stain, and I used Tamiya's fine surface primer white for all the windows. Now they will be painted later on as well. Paint the color that will match the siding color. This gives you an idea of all the walls that are involved in this. I used for the corner posts some of that special Z type of corner post that Micromark and Northeastern Scale Models produces. There are 2 sizes, and this is the 1/16th. It turns out to be 1/16th corner posts. This was the actual corners of it. I did not put any corner bracing on the edges of the walls. This Z kind of wood, I don't know how to describe it. You can see it for sale in both Micromark and Northeastern Scale Models. And this is the siding that goes on there. I drew lines onto each of the boards to keep my siding material from getting crooked. It's a technique that we often use in scratch building. You see up at the top something I will talk about later. It's the rabbit hole I went down in building wooden crates. So it gives you an idea of that. I laid out 11 windows, but discovered that I only needed 10. The eastern side of this building face is basically a north, south, east, west building. And the eastern side, you can't see much because Google Street Maps didn't go around the other side of the building, just went down the road that the house sits along. And so I had to try to use Google Earth to try to see the east side of the building. I have to admit, it's been some 60 years since I visited this house. And as much as I'd like to say I have a good brain, I couldn't remember exactly where the windows were in this house. So on the eastern side of that north part of the building, I put two windows, but there was only one. And so it was good enough to keep my plugs that I had cut out of the wood and used it to glue into that spot. It would be covered by the siding anyway, so you wouldn't see necessarily any of the patching work that I had to do. When I first laid out the building, the south section of that house, I used the measurements from Google Earth, but you don't often get accurate measurements. You get close to accurate measurements with Google Earth. And when I looked at it again, as I was getting ready to face the south sections, I said, there's something wrong about this. It doesn't look right. I had scaled the length of those walls at 18 scale feet. They're actually 24 scale feet. So I had to add 4 scale feet to each of those east and west side walls of that building. And of course, the extra large window was basically too large. I made it 5 scale feet wide instead of 12 scale feet wide. So I had to do some major repairs before I could put the siding on the buildings. Here's a picture now of the building. It has a foundation. I haven't covered the foundation yet, but you can see that extra large window below there in the center. That's all hand built or scratch built, and all of the windows have the acetate in them. I said there were 3 doors. Well, when I went to side the building, I forgot there. You can't see it, but just to the left of the add-on section of the building here is another door. It's the door we always entered when we went in to see Grandma. It was the back door, the side door of the house. This add-on section was actually added on sometime before I was born. It had the milk separation room in it, but also had an indoor toilet and shower for my grandfather and my one single uncle who lived with Grandma and Grandpa, helped farm the land. So that's what that add-on section was. But you went in this east side of the building. You can see I've covered over that window that was there. And when you walked up a couple of steps, walked in the door, you could go down into the storm cellar and then turn to the left and go into the house through this section of this add-on section and into the kitchen area. So this is the house finished as far as the walls go. It's a compound roof, and I haven't started on it yet. I intend to use the Inkscape to lay out the roof and try it out several times if I need to before I actually begin building the roof. It's quite a compound roof if you remember from the picture here. You can see there's two sections to the roof. The south section uh, basically comes in to merge or meet the east-west section of the house. So I have that, and then the add-on roof for the add-on section also is compound. And it's not easy to see exactly what it looks like, so I will do the best I can to make a model of it. In addition to this, another piece that I'm working on is this building here. It's called Western Tablet in St. Joe, Missouri. While I was in college, well, for a couple of months, I worked for the Missouri Pacific Railroad as maintenance of the way, and it was quite taxing work for a college student. I wasn't a football player like all the other summer employees were. I basically got heat exhaustion and nearly collapsed while I was working out there in the hot sun, maintaining the way. And after a month or so, I quit and went back to work with my father, who was an electrician, as an apprentice electrician. And his union location was in St. Joe, Missouri. So I became an apprentice with the union there and began working and passed by Western Tablet almost every day on the way to work. If any of you remember the Big Chief tablets that you used in first grade and second grade for printing, learning how to print, and in second grade, learning how to do cursive, you probably used a tablet that was manufactured here in St. Joe, Missouri. We typically commonly call this building West Tab, shortened it from Western Tablet. It is empty now, historical landmark in St. Joe, Missouri, but it produced not only the Big Chief tablets, but also the spiral bound notebooks and the test books that you used in college if you use those black textbooks, as well as notebook paper, the tablets that we use today, even the legal tablets were all produced here and shipped out. Now, this is a rather complex building to scratch build. And I had some of Walther's modular building pieces. So I decided I would represent West Tab in my own kind of way. And so I've put together a picture or an idea of Western Tablet. It's not the same number of stories. It's a smaller version, my interpretation of West Tab. So this is just a shell right now. I don't have a lot of praise for Walther's modular pieces, especially the instructions. They were very difficult to interpret or to understand. I had to do I put some pieces of the walls together and then had to take them apart again and re-put them and re-glue them back together again in order to create this. And there's really no easy way to do an inside corner, as you see here in this photograph. So I had to cut apart some of the pilasters and figure out how to put them back together again. And a building this large, which is kind of what the modular system was made for, is rather floppy. And so you see that I've used a lot of 1/4-inch plastic pieces to stiffen the building to make it more rigid. And this is the other side of it. It will have a foundation, it will have loading docks and so on. This is just beginning my interpretation of it. So there's a couple of photographs of Western Tablet. One of the things about considering this, I've made some cardboard floors for the inside that I'll basically put wooden flooring on. So many windows you can see into the building. So I thought, well, I have to do something on the inside. And I kind of went down a rabbit hole. I think I mentioned this a couple of shows ago. I began creating wooden crates from scratch. I'll let you know that Tishy does make wooden crates that you can glue together, but I wanted the challenge of creating my own. And basically what I used were the business cards that you can get from Lee Valley and other sources. And I began cutting up the actual business cards, not only for the crates, but also for the um, reinforcement around each of the sides of the crates. So I thought I'd give you an idea of how I put together the larger ones. So here's on the left is the original business card that I've measured out for. By the way, if you're using the pallets that are available, they're usually about 4 by 4, 4 feet by 4 feet. And so if you're going to figure about putting these crates onto wooden pallets, they have to be in some sort of multiple of 4 in order to fit on the crate. So in the second, I've begun to separate out the pieces that will be necessary for the crates, all 6 sides, and cut them up into smaller pieces. And when you're making a large crate, these business cards aren't exactly very thick, and so they're easily warped. So I use square toothpicks that you can buy in the grocery store and cut off the tips and began to use the square parts to reinforce the corners, which you can see in the picture on the left. I put on just 2 sides, 2 of the sides, I've put the wooden toothpick, and I'll glue the sides that don't have the wooden toothpicks to them. This one gives you a kind of a vertical view of what it looks like on the inside before you add the final 2 sides to the crate. And on the right is the crate all glued together. So that gives you an idea of what I have been doing. Going down that rabbit hole took me quite a few evenings, and I still have lots of pieces to make crates with. I think I finished my crates, as you saw in that earlier photograph. I'm not going to make any more, but some of these other pieces that I cut apart for crates might be able to be used for signs on buildings, as you know, to stiffen the paper to make it look like a metal sign. So that's kind of where I've been.
Excellent
Father,
work. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead, Pat.
What did you use for the siding on the house again? Was that shingles cut separately or?
It's Rail Scale.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
company here in the United States. They make all kinds of things for buildings, and they make siding, house siding. It's not the kind of tabs that you would use for roof shingles.
Yeah.
It's actual house siding, and it's called asbestos siding.
That's what I thought
They
it
make
looked
2
like.
kinds. One is called a step pattern, and one is called a curved pattern or
Right.
a scalloped pattern. My grandmother's house, to me, from the photographs, looked like it had the asbestos siding on it,
Yeah.
and the step pattern. So that's what I chose.
Nice job, Father.
Yeah, very nice. And that was one of my questions. And then on that Western tablet building, that's trimmed out in Indiana limestone. I had to point that out.
Yes, yes.
And
The bricks probably were made right there in St. Joe, Missouri. My hometown of Atchison, Kansas, made their own bricks, and a lot of the streets that date back to the 1860s were hand laid by a man with no legs. He would roll around on a cart and hand laid all the bricks in the old streets. My home house where I grew up as a kid actually had a brick street in front of it, and it's still brick today. They haven't
Yeah.
paved.
well, the limestone's a natural complement to brick, and it's
Yes.
difficult to model it because it's so ornate. It's almost an Art Deco look there. Do you know the year that building was put up?
I would guess it was probably the late 1800s,
Okay.
because it's been around. I mean, that's why it's part of a historical landmark in St. Joe, because it's one of the oldest buildings there. Of course, St. Joe goes back to the Pony Express carriers, so
And I
it's
know
a
that-
pretty old city to begin with.
And that's excellent on the wooden crate. So if you're if you're going to continue modeling that grandmother's house, your home, we'd love to have you on a part two.
Yes.
Let me
Well,
know when you're
it'll
ready.
be a while because I have to really work on that roof. I'm not
Yeah. Well, let
that
us
familiar with roofs. So
let us know. But thank you very much. Excellent modeler and excellent modeling and great history. Yeah, very
that's
interesting.
also my contribution to Chris this evening for kit bashing and scratch building.
Okay.